Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to start a new series where we're going to look at the top performing or just top played cards in the historic Brawl format by each rarity. So this is kind of an idea to see if you are a little tight on wildcards or you're trying to get an idea of what wildcards could be useful. These are the most played cards for each rarity, and we'll do them as standalone videos so you can take a look and see. Ultimately, when it comes to Historic Brawl, though, there's a couple things to keep in mind. The format is ideally for fun. Play what you find fun. Certain cards are going to be better for specific commanders, and some are going to be very niche to specific commanders. So those ones will ultimately be more reliable in that regard. These are more general cards that if you want to craft them, they are useful in a lot of different decks, and you can play them so you kind of get more value out of your wild card. But ultimately, I always say with Brawl, play the deck that you have fun with and kind of go from there. But yeah, we're going to start off with this. So we're going to get the data from Untapped.gg, which is a companion tool that runs alongside your Arena client. We do this also for the meta decks of like Standard, Historic, Explorer, etc. We're looking at November 15th through December 11th, so almost a month worth of data, 370,000 matches. And we're putting a filter on of minimum 1,000 games to kind of get an idea of what's being played. So we're going to kind of just walk through, see what some of the cards are, and kind of look at kind of the stats behind it as well. Sometimes cards get played, but they're not necessarily that good. So the most played card out of any Mythic is Time Warp. So Time Warp, 5 mana, take an extra turn. This is banned in Historic because people were just taking all the turns. Just, I'll take a turn. This card's very powerful, especially in a one-on-one format, especially with a format where your commander could be a planeswalker. Ultimately, like getting multiple activations or just a head-on land has a lot of utility. Sometimes it's just 5 mana, draw an extra card, play an extra land. But it's got a lot of utility in that. So this is included in 80,000 games, 21% of decks include Time Warp. It's got a 56% overall win rate. So in games played with the card in the deck, 56, but notably when it's been available, 65%. So the difference here is you could win a game with Time Warp in your deck, but you don't have it available. Whereas in games where you have it available, that jumps up almost 10% more. So that's kind of an interesting stat like that. We have next card, Seagate Restoration. So this is part of the modular land cycle. So we'll likely see quite a few of these. Just a lot of utility in your mana base. You're going to usually play 40 lands. Well, you want to avoid flood. Well, have some of your lands be spells. And this one being a card draw spell for blue is often something that you want. Again, similarly, we see not as stark of an increase, 56 to 60. But we're also seeing it kept most often. And then Mox Amber. So this is going to be a card here that, especially with low-cost commanders, it's a free mana rock. It's going to fix your mana. It just had a retro archive printing, so if you're opening packs of Brothers War, you might get it as well. But you'll see here, like the kept percentage is very high. So in your opening hand, it's often going to be kept in regards to that. We can then go to the Great Henge. So this is usually played in creature-heavy decks, allows you to get some card draw, life gain, and counters. Interestingly, though, it doesn't do as well in the format, so it's only 50%. It's kept a lot, but the win rates are pretty low, sub 50%, so it's an interesting inclusion there. Similarly with Meathook Massacre, now notably Meathook in Historic Brawl is the nerfed version. So you don't gain life when your opponent's creatures die. It's not true to paper printing, which probably contributes a bit to offsetting the life totals. So while it isn't played in a lot of decks, it's a really reasonable sweeper. Win rate still is fairly low overall. We see Liliana Dreadhorde General, very powerful planeswalker. This does a lot of things, so it makes you zombie tokens, it draws you cards, it's removal, and it's a pretty significant ultimate if you can pull it off. Interestingly, we'll see here 52 to 57. So this is, or 53 to 57, so 4% increase when you're actually casting it in the game. We see Immortal Sun. This is a card that can fit in any color deck. So 6 mana, shuts off Planeswalkers. So you're probably not going to play this in a deck with a lot of Planeswalkers. Gets you an extra card draw, reduces your spell costs, and also gives you a bonus to your creatures. And very similarly, we see folks with about a 4% increase. We see Shatter Skull as well as Agadeems here, both the utility lands being included. And then we jump to Uro, Titans of Nature's Wrath. This card's banned in a whole bunch of formats, and it's really good. It's even with this 54 to 61%. We have the nerfed Alrund's Epiphany, so notably you only get the birds when you foretell the card, and the foretell cost is just the same. So this is another card where we're seeing a big increase, 57% win rate to 64. So a lot of these extra turn spells, surprise, surprise, are very good. Taking more turns than your opponent pays off, especially if you can recast them multiple times. If you're playing like Emergent Ultimatum, the Sultai Ultimatum, oftentimes you can pick both the time walks and guarantee an extra turn, which is pretty powerful. So then we see Day of Judgment. This would be similar to likely Wrath of God. Day of Judgment is Mythic for some reason, but just a sweeper and kind of the more control shells. There's a lot of people who like playing Teferi style decks. But then we kind of go to some of the fatties. We got Ulamog. This is definitely the card that when you cast it, it's going to have the biggest difference. 59% just exiling things, getting card advantage. Vorinclex, very powerful card. So this enables a lot of combos. It's part of the combo with Emergent Ultimatum. If you're in a Planeswalker heavy deck, if you're in a Counters heavy deck, if you're just in a Stompy style deck, a lot of utility with this card here. Interestingly though, if they keep a hand with it at the start, it's only 50%, but if they play it later in the game, it's 55%. So kind of an interesting stat there. We have Goldspan Dragon, just a powerful card. Ramps you, does a whole bunch of stuff, lets you play treasure strategies, everything like that. Chandra, again, just a good utility planeswalker, card advantage, removal, ramp, emblem that just wins the game on its own. Elder Gargaroth, again, just a utility creature, especially if you're in green decks. It could stonewall a lot of the aggressive decks, give you card advantage, make you go wide, insulate your life total, everything like that. Craterhoof Behemoth, another kind of top end of creature heavy decks. If you're in elves, anything going wide, this is usually a card you want to kind of target. Portal to Phyrexia is a new card, and it's seeing a lot of play, but the results aren't the greatest. 50% win rate, kept 50%. People keeping a 9-mana card in the opening hand's probably what's contributing to it, but still got a nice top end effect. There is a lot of artifact and enchantment removal in the format, so this can usually be, okay, you kill 3 things, but it's often kind of falling on the wayside there. I threw it into my my mono green list. It's got like a lot of ramp elements, so it's a fun top end card. Turn Timber is just, again, the creature, the utility land from Zendikar. We're going to see likely all of these being played. We have Paradox Engine. This is a card that I'm surprised is still allowed in the format. It's probably in the top tier decks, but a lot of times Paradox Engine's the card, and it's banned in EDH for the same reason, because it's just like, oops, infinite combo. There's so many ways to kind of trip and fall into an infinite combo. Great in Elves, Emery, Kinian, like there's so many different kind of combos that you can pull off with this card here. Jin-Gitaxias, this is likely going to be in some sort of Reanimator show, Rafine, anything like that. Another good top-end threat that you likely don't want to keep in your opening hand. Wandering Emperor, just a fantastic utility planeswalker, can deal with scalable cards, creates tokens, put counters, first strikes, a whole bunch of utility. Oracle the Alpha is an interesting one. In a 100-card deck, you're going to have a harder time finding the Power 9, but you're probably playing this in a Blink-style shell to get a bunch of utility. Another card that's interesting, if you keep it, it's 48% win rate, but if you play it, it's 56%. Titan of Industry, one of the top-end ramp threats or reanimation threats. Sheoldred, just a very powerful card, is either as your commander, one-shot kills them with Peer to the Abyss. There's a lot of kind of ways to kind of get them like that. And then we're just kind of getting into some of the utility cards. Grim Tutor is just a general tutor. Find anything in your deck. Crux of Fate as kind of the best mono black sweeper. All the 4-mana sweepers are conditional, where this one is one-sided, and it's even better if you're playing something like Nicol Bolas, where you can keep yours around. Miria's Call is the mythic white land. And then we just kind of go into a few other cards. We'll just kind of rattle a couple off, and then keep this as about a 10-minute video, just kind of highlighting. So Teferi, very powerful in control, mid-rangey shells, blue-white. Kiora, usually found in Emergent Ultimatum, kind of control decks top end. A lot of utility here. Create an 8/8, good value. You tap all your opponent's stuff, which can let you alpha strike, and then you get to steal something. Mystic Forge, usually in combo decks, if you're not playing heavy artifacts, it's really not that good. And that's kind of reflective in the overall win rate. This is a card you definitely have to build around. Similarly, Ren, it's probably going to be played in like a Zuza or heavy land-based decks, but you kind of have to build around this. Teferi's Protection, usually better in a 4-player format, I think, but really the stats aren't there to really back it up here in terms of being that effective. Kami War, if you can play the 5-color card that does so much, it's got a very high win rate, so a really good card to include there. Valky, the Valky side is really not that good. You're playing it for Tybalt, so it's really do you get to cast Tybalt, which is the biggest variable. Brazen Borrower, good tempo play, good overall card. Essica, very powerful card, especially with Prismatic Bridge side. Usually in a Planeswalker, heavy big threat deck. Lulth and Liliana, just 2 powerful Planeswalkers and mono black shells. Chromatic Orrery, another kind of top-end ramp card. I usually don't like these types of effects. If you're paying 7 mana to ramp, it's color fixing, but it's kind of the biggest target on it, so it usually kind of blows up. I like my ramp to be early in the format. And then lastly, like there's a couple other ones, but Cityscape Leveler is a card I've been really impressed. I've been playing it in a few different decks, especially in monocolor decks like mono black that has trouble dealing with like artifacts, for example, or enchantments. Like you have Feed the Swarm and Invoke Despair, but that's kind of it. So these are some cards like that. So let me know what you think of these kinds of videos. I'll do it with the full set, and then if this is something you'd like to see, maybe like after each set release, every month, I can kind of put it into the rotation of the meta decks as well. But really just trying out some more evergreen content. If there's some ideas of what you'd like to see on the channel, definitely let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a great one, and stay safe out there.